Interstate 80 at Winton, and it has traffic backing into Union City now. Back up through.
So the first time I walked into the Zendo was a couple years ago, 3 years ago. You know, there was something about going into this very quiet space that was really quite stark and sitting still, which is not my favorite thing to do. It felt like there were so many things going on, and they seemed interminable. You know, the sitting itself just seemed like it was never going to end. And I didn't go back for several months. I didn't go back until June of the next year. And partly because it was a difficult experience. I mean, I kept thinking, okay, this is really good for me, and maybe I should go do this. And then when I did, I started going regularly.
I started working here in the corporate world, the high-tech world, and I had been reading about Buddhism and Zen practice, and I had been much taken by its worldview or its philosophy, if you will, that that everything we do, every act that we perform in our everyday life, is a spiritual act. My wife and I had read some books, and we discovered that there was this meditation group in Los Altos in a converted garage. And of course, we were very uncomfortable sitting in a cross-legged posture for the very first time, and it was freezing in this unheated garage. And I remember distinctly when we were driving home from Los Altos back to San Jose, we looked at each other and said, never again, never do that again. That was crazy. The very next Wednesday night, I was up there again.
When I first started Zen practice, I thought of that as an isolated activity, I think. Because you sit on the cushion and you're watching your own thoughts, and it seems, on first glance, quite solitary. But amazingly enough, amazing to me anyway, is that the longer you sit, the more connected you actually end up feeling to, I would say, not only the people sitting there at the Zendo, but to everybody.
Rolling out the limit as you head further toward Walnut Creek southbound, no delays.
The work of a public defender is dealing with people's problems, and not just their problems, but their catastrophes, and need help. So there's an enormous amount of suffering and dysfunctionality that's reflected there. To do that on a consistent basis, you need to recharge yourself. You have to get rid of the myopia, the nearsightedness of the immediate, I can't do anything about this experience, and see it in a longer range, from a longer point of view.
And you may say to yourself, meditation? Why meditation? What does meditation have to do with my busy work life?
We tend to run on autopilot. and we were just more or less handing out the canned responses that people expect from us in given situations, almost in a protective kind of way. I think part of one of the real benefits of meditation is you can do something about that every day for 5 or 10 or 20 minutes, and just sitting quietly in contemplation is a tremendous way to recharge the batteries.
My work can be really stressful. I'm in charge of a post-anesthesia care unit, and it's a very, very busy, chaotic place. There could be 5 or 6 ORs running at the same time. And so there's noise and chaos. There's monitors beeping and phones ringing and alarms going off, and patients in different stages of recovery, and some are experiencing pain. And I could very easily just get caught up in that chaos and become chaotic myself. And I found that when I can return to my breathing in the midst of all that chaos, sometimes I can just intuitively know what needs to be done.
Staying still, like the don't move, is tremendously challenging. But it's also such a neat place. It's such a reflective, contemplative kind of space. If you've got the appetite for, maybe that's what got you there in the beginning anyway. You think, well, I'll sit it out. I'll sit through this. I can do this.
When I came to practice, I was very much in overdrive. The biggest thing maybe that I've gotten out of practice is that I can now go around in every gear. And that's a wonderful thing to do. There are a lot of times when overdrive is required, and that's useful, and you can get a lot done. But if you're always driving fast, there are lots of roads you cannot take, and there are lots of things you cannot do.
It was important for me to find a place that allowed me to sort of shed a great deal of the contextual chaos that is both emotional and physical. Just as it was important for me to sort of find that space in order to move forward, I think it's really critical for a community to have a place like Kannon Do where people can go to start to create that space. And it's not just about finding a place where the birds sing and the squirrels frolic. It's about finding a place where you can do the work that is going to give you literally the dimensions to allow you to explore those things.
Quite often we meet with other people, we meet with our friends and our acquaintances, and they may talk to us about the difficulties that they're having, and maybe their stress, and maybe they're upset. And by listening carefully to them, not only do you hear about the difficulty that they're having, but you also feel their strength and their courage and how they're working their way through their difficulty. You see it all the time. People don't just come in and fall down and surrender. People find the capacity to respond to their difficulties. You see their courage, and you see their fighting spirit, and you see their compassion, and you see how they're making the discoveries in the midst of their difficulties. And the best thing we can do for each other is encourage that part of the other person that we see.
My husband died about 5 years ago, and I think I'm still mourning his death in our marriage that ended after 23 years. And sometimes when I'm sitting, tears will come. And I used to sit close to the door at Kannon Do, and sometimes when I would get uncomfortable, it was like, I can leave. I don't have to stay here if it gets too uncomfortable. Now I'm more comfortable sitting way into the Zendo where I can't escape quite so easily, and I'm more likely to stay on my cushion and be with the discomfort and the pain or the sadness than I was before.
Things have gotten denser in the valley, in Silicon Valley, that you can hear traffic at night that you could never hear before. The main arterials are sometimes jammed, over-jammed, not just in rush hour, but later in the evening. A lot more traffic, a lot more noise, higher level, higher decibel of not just noise, but stress, interaction, packed stuff. One result of that appears to be the Kannon Do gets bigger. High stress, high tech life is not all there is. So Kannon Do then is the counterbalance. It's a good partner, companion with work. Having some exercise, some practice, seeing what that's about, bowing to that, making space for that. That's the deal with spiritual practice. It's an important part of being alive.
Zen practice is a mature response to the difficulties of life. The things we do are very much grounded in our everyday activities. So we're in process, we're still in transition of bringing the practice into American life and trying to understand how to express this spiritual practice in the everyday terms of America.
So looking back over the last 10 years, what's kept me coming back is how much there was to learn, or maybe to unlearn, about myself. The more I practice, the more spacious the world feels. It's been a wonderful opening up. And I have the feeling there's no end to it, that it can just keep going on and on.